proven in Zoro vs. King, where he does a one sword style attack, Lion Strike against King, and states that this one sword style attack was actually more powerful than his previous three sword style Dragon Twister attack. Hey, what's up everybody? It's LeeLos, and today we're talking about why Zoro versus Lucci is obvious. Stay steady in pursuit of your dreams and goals. You're born to win, you're made for greatness, and I definitely believe in you guys. Keep up the great work each and every day. So Zoro versus Lucci is a battle between the right-hand man of a Yonko and a massively upgraded version of one of Luffy's strongest enemies from the pre-time skip. Spoiler warning to anime onlys, I will spoil a lot of important details of Egghead Island all the way to chapter 1111, so if you don't want to be spoiled, this is your chance to leave the video now. Zoro and Lucci collide in a battle that spans a total of 20 chapters and ends with Zoro objectively having the upper hand. Today we're going to analyze every element and factor of this battle to determine, in an uninterrupted fresh battle where both opponents are at 100% power, who is truly stronger than who, and what is the true strength gap between these two characters. This battle starts off with a battle-damaged Lucci clashing with a somewhat battle-damaged Zoro, with Zoro successfully stopping Lucci from killing Vegapunk. This interaction tells us a lot about the narrative of the entire battle. Lucci's initial mission coming into Egghead Island was to assassinate all 7 Vegapunks. The reason Lucci was not actively trying to kill Vegapunk for a span of 15 chapters was due to the genuine fear and acknowledgement of Luffy's overwhelming power. Lucci starts this arc telling his teammates that he does not recognize Luffy as a true Yonko. Then, after getting low diff destroyed by Luffy, Lucci speaks to Zoro and admits that now he does recognize Luffy as a true Yonko, where he states, "The right-hand man of an emperor is more than worth killing on his own." But basically, Lucci is an overconfident mad lad, as he states that he believes with just him and Kizaru together, they would be able to wipe out the Straw Hats. This is a subtle callback to when Luffy fought Lucci, and Lucci states that he felt he was capable of killing the rest of Luffy's crew pre-time skip as well. This is a Lucci who got knocked out by Luffy and just got finished battling numerous Seraphim not but moments prior, so Lucci's durability and his ability to bounce back and keep fighting is genuinely very impressive. Zoro pushes Lucci through the wall of a building and they continue fighting outside. Chapter 1093, Zoro and Lucci are both evenly battling each other in their strongest forms. Lucci's in his man-beast form awakening, and Zoro is using King of Hell. After battling King of Hell Zoro, Lucci's perspective has shifted yet again. Now he views Zoro as a formidable opponent as well. Chapter 1107, we see Zoro and Lucci are still fighting. Zoro is now just using 2 swords and is not using King of Hell, but he's still fighting evenly with awakened Lucci. This implies that Zoro has gained greater mastery of both Enma and his King of Hell technique and has probably been training them off screen. In his fight against King, using King of Hell just for a few attacks nearly killed him, but here he has an extended battle in King of Hell, then powers down to base form and is still fighting awakened Lucci. So is Zoro holding back on Lucci and just clowning Lucci here? The honest short answer to this is maybe, but also maybe not. The reality is the majority of the battle is off screen and we don't get to see the inner dialogue of the characters during the battle to see what they're truly thinking. Therefore, we can only make inferences based on visual representations of the battle, and there are numerous valid ways to interpret this battle. Here are a few possible interpretations of this battle, and I'll share the interpretation that I believe to be the most likely as well. It's possible that Zoro is just switching between his sword styles throughout the fight, the same way he's done in many fights prior. In the original Zoro vs. Kaku fight, for example, Zoro switches from 3 sword style attacks to 2 sword style numerous times throughout the battle, despite Kaku being so strong that he forced Zoro to use his strongest technique, Ashura. Sometimes Zoro will do a 1 sword style attack even after firing 3 sword style attacks prior, proven in Zoro vs. King, where he does a 1 sword style attack, Lion Strike against King, and states that this 1 sword style attack was actually more powerful than his previous 3 sword style Dragon Twister attack. Simply put, just because Zoro's using 2 sword style in his fights, or even 1 sword style, does not automatically automatically 100% of the time mean that Zoro is holding back, especially now that one of Zoro's swords is Enma and it's massively more powerful than his other swords. Enma on its own, one sword style, might be more powerful than some of Zoro's two sword style attacks with his other swords, for example. So to gauge whether Zoro is truly holding back or not, you also have to pay attention to which swords Zoro is using. Zoro not having all three swords resulting in nerfing his power has been a plot point numerous times in the series, such as at the start of the series where he fights those cat brothers, and earlier in Wano against Killer. But not having all three of his swords is a different thing than having all three of his swords and choosing to do attacks that only require one or two swords. These are two different scenarios. If you've played games where you have multiple weapon choices like Dark Souls, you can think of it like switching around your weapons for cool combos against enemies. Especially since so much of this fight is off screen, this is a possibility genuinely worth considering. Another possibility is that Zoro is intentionally fighting using only two swords so that he can restore Haki to use King of Hell again, similar to how Luffy has to recharge his Haki in between Gear 4 transformations. The last time Zoro used King of Hell, Enma was about to kill him from the speed of Haki drain after Zoro just did 2 attacks. So it's possible and logical that Zoro put Enma in its sheath so that Zoro can regen his Haki without Enma draining it. That way he can save Haki for a more powerful 3-sword style attack to finish the fight later. And a third possibility is that the damage from Luffy knocking Lucci out earlier weakened Lucci to the point where Zoro only needed 2 swords from this moment in the fight onwards. This could be a subtle callback to Luffy's fight against Lucci during Enies Lobby, where Luffy hits Lucci with a giant pistol, and the lingering effects from that punch led to numerous advantages at critical moments in the fight later for Luffy. What I believe is the most likely scenario is that Zoro and Lucci are both so exhausted that this is the most powerful form that they can muster. This is implied by awakened Lucci fighting Zoro evenly in King of Hell form, and then awakened Lucci fighting 2-sword Zoro evenly. If awakened Lucci can fight King of Hell evenly, then awakened Lucci can kill 2-sword Zoro. But he doesn't, meaning he's so tired that this is the max output he can muster. Zoro and Lucci kinda hate each other as well, so if either one could kill the other immediately, then they most likely would. I also like this perspective the most because it would mean that Zoro has gotten considerably more powerful from Wano until now, and it heavily implies that Zoro does Haki training off screen specifically to wield Enma better now as well. Lucci Dark Souls parries Zoro and sends one of his blades flying into the sky. Oda makes a joke here where Sanji calls Zoro a liability for taking so long to defeat Lucci. Zoro gets angry and 3-sword style defeats Lucci with his next attack. Even though this moment is funny, it's still within Zoro's power to do this. It's not a gag power-up like Nami beating up Luffy. It was a new move that was also a funny moment. Oda does not do Nami punch jokes to end major fights. That's why Nami was getting slapped up by Ulti. Lucci is still standing after this attack, but he's jacked up so badly that from Jinbei's perspective, Zoro won the battle. Now, before we get to the final conclusion analysis of the fight, we have to talk about Zoro's bandana. So, Zoro never wears his bandana throughout the entirety of this fight, and some fans believe that it's proof that Zoro was holding back. So let's put that idea to the test. In most of Zoro's serious battles, he wears his bandana as a headband. It's symbolic, similar to Sanji smoking during stressful moments of the series. But here's the thing, Zoro absolutely 100% for certain also has serious battles without wearing his head bandana at all. Examples proving this would be when he fought Killer and when he fought Kuma. Against Killer, Zoro took a scythe blade to the shoulder and legitimately nearly died, and he proceeds to do one of his more powerful techniques and passes out immediately after the battle concludes. And against Kuma, his entire crew's lives were at stake, and he was doing everything he could do to defeat Kuma, but did not wear the bandana. Zoro was definitely still going all out here and was not holding back. Sometimes there are serious moments and serious battles where Zoro does not wear his bandana. That does not mean Zoro is is holding back though. There are also moments where Zoro is wearing his bandana and is still not going all out. A good example of this being during Fishman Island. He wears his bandana and he's barely trying and still low diffing everyone. You can also analyze Zoro battling the same character with and without his bandana on to get a good understanding of if the bandana was a power-up, how much of a power-up it would potentially be. So in chapter 413, Three Sword style Zoro clashes with and redirects a nose pistol from Kaku. He's using Three Sword style and he's not wearing his bandana. But then in chapter 416, Zoro is wearing his bandana. He is damaged by Kaku, then attempts to block nose pistol with Two Sword style and is sent flying. So he was able to redirect it while healthy with Three Swords and no bandana, but he was sent flying by it with Two Swords wearing a bandana and he was injured. So this example shows that if the bandana was a power-up, then it would be a smaller power-up than going from Two Swords to Three Swords would be. Basically, the bandana is more of a symbolic thing than it is an indicator of how much power Zoro is using. And Egghead Island is more like a transitionary arc to get to the true main next arc of Elbaf. It's just a transitionary arc where everything goes absolutely insane. And Zoro tends to only wear his bandana during the final battle of a main arc. And in this arc, you got Luffy and Sanji together fighting the first and second strongest enemies with Kizaru and Saturn, while Zoro fights the third strongest Lucci. That's never happened in any other arc in One Piece, so Zoro not wearing his bandana during the final battle of the arc fits the theme of everything being weird. That's also a possible explanation to it. So here's the final conclusion. Zoro is objectively stronger than Lucci, but it's a high difficulty fight. The reason it's high difficulty is because Lucci went into this fight after getting knocked out by Luffy, then knocked out by Stussy, then battled numerous Seraphim, and still immediately followed that up by fighting Zoro using his strongest form and battling the strongest form of Zoro evenly. That implies every time we see Lucci in the same awakened form battling Zoro with Two Swords in base form, that's because Lucci is so tired and damaged that Lucci's power dropped from King of Hell Zoro level to Two Sword Zoro level. Zoro being able to battle Two Sword style after using King of Hell implies improvement over controlling Enma, because the last time he used King of Hell, he could barely control Enma and he nearly died from the Haki draining speed, implying Zoro was tired as well after using King of Hell against Lucci, and was using Two Sword style to save up Haki to do Three Sword style again later in the fight. It's also possible that Zoro intentionally stored Enma in his sheath after using King of Hell so that Enma would stop draining his Haki, and that way Zoro could regen his Haki more easily. Even though the moment is funny, it's possible that the final attack Zoro does in this battle was exactly what Zoro would have done even if Sanji did not say anything. It could have been more or less Zoro's battle strategy all along. If Zoro was fighting Two Sword style to regenerate enough Haki to do a Three Sword style attack with Enma, then that idea becomes much more likely. There's a possibility that after using King of Hell, Lucci was tired to the point where Two Sword Zoro could battle him evenly, and Zoro still had enough energy to use Three Sword style or Ashura, but was just toying with Lucci for fun. This is possible, but I consider this unlikely. Zoro is the same person who one-shot Hody Jones underwater. If he can one-shot a dangerous enemy, then he usually does. So this battle, Zoro and Lucci both start battle damaged, so how would a healthy Lucci versus a healthy Zoro go? The answer is, it would still be a high difficulty battle with Zoro as the winner, only it would be even more challenging for Zoro to win. Zoro would take more damage and likely come closer to losing a few times during the battle. The main reason I say this is because we see awakened Lucci matches the power of King of Hell, and Lucci's awakened form appears to last longer than King of Hell does, proven by Zoro starting in King of Hell, going down to base form with Two Swords, while Lucci is still in awakened form, meaning the awakened form literally lasted longer than Zoro's King of Hell form lasted. This implies that if they were both healthy, the same thing would happen, only a fresh, more powerful awakened Lucci would be battling a tired base form Zoro, so Zoro would have to damage Lucci enough in the first usage of King of Hell that he brings Lucci's overall power down to a level where Zoro can continue battling Lucci evenly while Zoro's in base form and recovering his haki. This makes the battle more challenging, but it's definitely still possible and even likely for Zoro to pull this off. It would be a closer battle, but Zoro would still win in the end, especially considering that Zoro has a Shura in his arsenal as well, and he won this battle with a 3-sword style attack. Their actual battle in the manga was a high difficulty fight between two nearly evenly matched opponents, and a rematch between both of them healthy would be the exact same thing, only slightly closer in Lucci's favor, but Zoro gets the victory 100% of the time, especially considering the fact that Zoro won with a 3-sword style attack, even though there's a possibility he could have used a Shura in that moment. It gives us a solid claim that Zoro beats Lucci 100% of the time, but it's a close competitive fight 100% of the time, proven by a battle damaged Lucci still being able to match the power of a somewhat battle damaged Zoro's strongest form. Even if you highball Zoro to the max and believe that Zoro was holding back and just toying with Lucci after using King of Hell, even this highballed Zoro has a medium, almost high div fight against a healthy full power Lucci, because Lucci was still shown matching the power of Zoro's strongest form. That's everything I wanted to say in this video, guys. More or less, they're close in power. If they were members on the same crew, they'd be close enough in power to be rivals. Like if Lucci was a Straw Hat, he would be above Jinbei but below Sanji. So that's where I would put him. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see ya on the next video.